Okay, so the Capcom showcase officially happened last night, and oh my god, there's a lot of Resident Evil news to go over. There's a lot coming, there's a lot that's already happening, and this video is mainly going to be going over what each point was that was shown, and giving my brief kind of thoughts on it, and then throughout the week we'll go into each one in more detail, and talk about it on a more level field. So I'll give you my opinions in this one, and then we'll discuss the overall thoughts of the announcements in separate videos for each part of the reveal. So without any further ado, let's jump into point number one. So first and foremost, Resident Evil Village finally got its DLC announcement, and I did not see this coming. I always kind of thought it would be cool if there was a DLC about Rose, but I always thought she would be left until the next game. But I guess not. So the DLC is called Shadows of Rose, and it takes place 16 years after the events of the main game, so there is a bit of a time jump, which people are questioning at the moment. We'll get into that in the video about the DLC specifically. But to give you a rundown on the story of it, Rose, obviously, as we know, has powers, and she basically wants to get rid of them, so she enters like the mindscape of the Mega Mycete to find a way to get rid of them. That's all we really know. Obviously, throughout the gameplay, you can see that she has weapons. She meets a double of herself, which people are leading to assume is Ava, which is Miranda's daughter. And then, of course, you've got the Duke in the trailer as well, which is pretty cool to see. And that DLC is entirely in third person, so I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. Next up, from updates to the Mercenaries mode, we have Chris as a playable character, we have Heisenberg as a playable character, and we have Dimitrescu as a playable character. Very, very cool. And I can't wait to jump into Mercenaries again with new stages. And then finally, we have third person for the main story in Resident Evil Village. And that is, I did not see that coming, and it looks so cool. Can't wait to play the game again in third person. Gives me more reason to go back and play it again. And it really just put the game in a whole different perspective. So a lot coming for Resident Evil Village, and I can't wait. And that is on October 28th. As well as Resident Evil Village's DLC releasing on the 28th of October, we also have a release date for Resident Evil Reverse. As we know, this was meant to come out when Resident Evil Village released way back in May of last year. Got delayed into the July, and then basically got delayed indefinitely. We now have a actual release date. It is the 28th of October alongside the DLC. A lot of people, including myself, kind of assumed that when the gold edition for Resident Evil Village released with all the DLC, that this would be with it, and it looks like that's going to be the case. And it doesn't look like they showed much of it. I don't think they showed any of it, but it'll be interesting to see what they've done with it and if they've improved it in any way when it launches, so we'll wait and see for that one. Next up, they did go into a bit more detail about Resident Evil 4 and how the game is a remake. In the same vein as 2 and 3, it wants to be more immersive, it wants to be more horror focused, and they did show a little bit of gameplay as well. Not a lot, just more of the perspective it's in, so it is in third person again over the shoulder. There is still rumours that there's going to be a first person option, kind of how there's a third person option in Village now. Well, when the Village DLC comes out, there'll be a third person option. So people are thinking there maybe will be two perspectives in that game as well you can choose from. But what we've seen is in third person. Again, more horror focused, a bit more serious. They mentioned Leon's more fearless now, braver, but also still kind of suffers from what happened in the past. So it's interesting to see what they're doing with his character. They briefly touched on the Ganados themselves and how they've been completely redesigned and changed to feel more menacing rather than anything else. Be interesting to see how they work and how they behave now, because obviously in the original game, the original Resident Evil 4, sorry, they were quite good. I think the AI for the Ganados was quite good, very smart. They all kind of like worked together to take you out, and hopefully that sticks with the remake. But there's still not a lot of information out there, but we've just seen a bit more from the game, a few more different scenes, and dude, I can't wait. Resident Evil 4, it might not be my favourite game in the series, but it's definitely one of the best, that's for sure. Like, it's a really fun game, and I think the remake will be just as good, to be honest. And then the final point that was mentioned throughout the stream last night is that the next-gen versions of the Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 3 remake, and Resident Evil 7 are now available on next-gen consoles. So obviously your PS5, your Xbox Series X and S, as well as PC as well. They all got upgraded. 60 FPS, ray tracing as well, and there's some haptic feedback, dynamic triggers options on PS5. In terms of playing those, I'll be playing each one on stream at some point within the next week or so. For the first time, I haven't played them yet, and I want to experience them on stream kind of firsthand. So I look forward to those as well. But now we've gone over the key points of what was mentioned last night, I do want to kind of give my thoughts briefly on each of the points that have been already mentioned. And then again, there'll be a more in-depth video in the future about each one individually. So let's start with the Village DLC. So with the Village DLC, like I said, having a Rose-focused DLC was something I didn't expect. I think everyone kind of assumed it would be about the Lords, or about the villagers, or maybe even Chris. So while Rose having DLC was potential, was possible, sorry, it wasn't really the one everyone was assuming it was going to be, and it is. The time jump's interesting, like I said. There's a lot of people out there thinking that this DLC takes place after RE9. I don't know if there's any like official confirmation of that, but it all depends on what happens and what is said in the DLC, I guess. But having that time jump kind of confirms that Rose doesn't really have aging. It's a 16-year time jump, so that would assume that she's 16 in the DLC. Kind of fits how she looks, so does kind of make sense. But again, we'll see what happens with the DLC. But it's in a third-person perspective, which is cool. You're obviously revisiting certain locations from the main game, and there is some new enemy types thrown in there as well by the look of it, as well as the Duke having a massive importance to it by the look of it. Obviously you see him in the trailer, he's got a mask on, he's summoning enemies in to fight you, so maybe he is in fact evil in the DLC, which would really lay into the theory of him being the 5th Lord, and maybe a bit power hungry, since he kind of took the essences of all the other Lords when you defeated them in the main game. So I am really looking forward to that DLC, but we'll go more into it in a different video. So let's move on to Mercenaries. Mercenaries mode for Resident Evil Village, I would say, isn't as good as what it was in 456. I think Mercenaries is a really fun mode regardless, but Village's version kind of lacked slightly. It does, however, kind of redeem itself with the DLC. Obviously we've got some new stages, which I'd imagine will take place in the DLC areas. You get Chris as a playable character, you get Heisenberg as a playable character, and Dimitrescu as a playable character. Those two specifically are really, really cool to see, because obviously they probably have a bit more of a unique playstyle. Kind of reminds me of certain characters you used to be able to play in the older Mercenaries modes, like Wesker and such, where they're a bit more unique. So that will definitely be interesting to see, and as always, I'll be going for those triple S ranks, like I have done with every stage in Resident Evil Village so far, so should be fun to see. And then obviously your third person perspective. Now that is something I can't wait to play. I think a lot of people were kind of thrown from 7 and 8 being in first person, and then having the option now to pick between the two is good. I think it does allow for a lot more accessibility to the game, as well as kind of, you know, giving you the choice to pick between the perspectives. I know that some people aren't a fan of first person, and it also causes motion sickness as well for some people, so having the option to play it in third definitely opens up more people to the game, which is definitely a positive. Resident Evil Reverse is something I'll talk about in another video. I'll briefly kind of go over what the game is again, but again, it doesn't really look like they showed much in the showcase last night, so I don't know if it's going to be any different, or if they've changed it drastically, or they've just kind of took the time to fine-tune it and such. I guess we'll see with that one. I, again, did play the beta way back when, and I did kind of enjoy it. It's not a game I'll play constantly, but it is fun to kind of kill an hour or two every now and again. So I'm looking forward to finally getting hands on with the full release and seeing what they do with it. Resident Evil 4, like I mentioned earlier, I'm just genuinely excited for that game. I can't wait to play it. I can't wait to see what's changed. I can't wait to see, you know, the new story kind of focus in terms of it being more serious and such, and it's going to be a good time. I think anyone who hasn't played the original already should, but then be prepared for the game to be a bit more different when the remake releases. But either way, with the original and the remake, I'm sure both versions are going to stand up really, really strong as some of the best in the series. So we'll just have to wait and see with that one. And then finally, next gen versions. Again, it's really good to see these older games get the next gen upgrade. 60 FPS, ray tracing and such for 2, 3 and 7 is really, really cool to see. And again, I haven't played them yet, I haven't seen footage of them yet, but I will be playing them live on stream over the next week for the first time. and then going through the DLC for 7 on stream and next gen, as well as doing some more challenging runs on the next gen versions as well, just to see how I fare when the game is a bit more responsive and runs a bit smoother. So that's all. I'm very happy with all of that. But that covers it. That's everything that was announced last night. There's a lot to go over the next few days in terms of going more in depth with each point, and we'll start obviously with the big village bundle. We'll talk about the Rose DLC more, what people think of it, what it could mean for the game and the story, as well as some theories around what's going on in it as well. And then we'll move on to Reverse. We'll kind of touch on that game again, go over what it is and what they could do to improve it and such. And then, as and when Resident Evil 4 news does release, we'll talk about Resident Evil 4. There's still a video I'm working on about Resident Evil 4 at the minute in terms of the game having mixed reception right now, but that's on its way, should be out by the end of the week, maybe next week. And then, obviously, with the next gen versions of 2, 3, and 7, I'll make some videos and some streams along those as well. So there's a lot of content coming to the channel. We've finally had a big dose of Resident Evil content, and it's literally October, so it's not too far away now before we get some new stuff, and then that's literally from October to March. Like, there's a small gap between the Village DLC and Resident Evil 4. So, of course there's Reverse as well, so probably get some content out of that as well. So there's a lot going on from October onwards with Resident Evil, so it's not too much longer to wait now. But yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll leave your thoughts on anything that was announced last night down in the comments, and look out for the videos going more in depth with each point over the next few days. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.